Energy has mass, and mass represents energy. Most of the fundamental ideas of science are essentially simple and may, as a rule, be expressed in a language comprehensible to everyone. Common sense is nothing more than a deposit of prejudices laid down in the mind before you reach 18. Do not worry about your difficulties in mathematics. I can assure you mine are still greater. Books on physics are full of complicated mathematical formulae, but thought and ideas, not formulas, are the beginning of every physical theory. Equations are more important to me because politics is for the present, but an equation is something for eternity. We should take care not to make the intellect our god. It has, of course, powerful muscles, but no personality. As far as the laws of mathematics refer to reality, they are not certain, and as far as they are certain, they do not refer to reality. Physical concepts are free creations of the human mind and are not, however it may seem, uniquely determined by the external world. The whole of science is nothing more than a refinement of everyday thinking. A man of science is a poor philosopher. Perfection of means and confusion of goals seem, in my opinion, to characterize our age. The justification for a physical concept lies exclusively in its clear and unambiguous relation to facts that can be experienced. Of what is significant in one's own existence, one is hardly aware, and it certainly should not bother the other fellow. I refuse to make money out of my science. My laurel is not for sale like so many bales of cotton. A person who has not made his great contribution to science before the age of 30 will never do so. What I am really interested in is whether God could have made the world in a different way. That is, whether the necessity of logical simplicity leaves any freedom at all. We may sum up as follows. According to the general theory of relativity, space is endowed with physical qualities. In this sense, therefore, an ether exists. Space without an ether is inconceivable. When you are courting a nice girl, an hour seems like a second. When you sit on a red-hot cinder, a second seems like an hour. That's relativity. I have learned something else from the theory of gravitation. No ever so inclusive collection of empirical facts can ever lead to the setting up of such complicated equations. A theory can be tested by experience, but there is no way from experience to the setting up of a theory. One reason why mathematics enjoys special esteem above all other sciences is that its laws are absolutely certain and indisputable, while those of all other sciences are to some extent debatable and in constant danger of being overthrown by newly discovered facts. If men as individuals surrender to the call of their elementary instincts, avoiding pain and seeking satisfaction only for their own selves, The result, for them all taken together, must be a state of insecurity, of fear, and of promiscuous misery. The unleashed power of the atom has changed everything save our modes of thinking, and we thus drift towards unparalleled catastrophe. I do not believe that civilization will be wiped out in a war fought with the atomic bomb. Perhaps 2/3 of the people of the earth might be killed, but enough men capable of thinking and enough books would be left to start again, and civilization could be restored. Often in evolutionary processes, a species must adapt to new conditions in order to survive. Today, the atomic bomb has altered profoundly the nature of the world as we know it, and the human race consequently finds itself in a new habitat to which it must adapt its thinking. The most beautiful emotion we can experience is the mystical. It is the power of all true art and science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. To know that what is impenetrable to us really exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty, which our dull faculties can comprehend only in their most primitive forms, this knowledge, this feeling, is at the center of true religiousness. In this sense, and in this sense only, I belong to the rank of devoutly religious men. My religion consists of a humble admiration of the illimitable superior spirit who reveals himself in the slight details we are able to perceive with our frail and feeble minds. Michel has left this strange world just before me. This is of no importance. For us convinced physicists, the distinction between past, present, and future is an illusion, although a persistent one. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existence. One cannot help but in awe when he contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It is enough if one tries merely to comprehend a little of this mystery each day. Never lose a holy curiosity. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. When I examine myself and my methods of thought, I come close to the conclusion that the gift of fantasy has meant more to me than my talent for absorbing positive knowledge. The individual who has experienced solitude will not easily become a victim of mass suggestion. Nationalism is an infantile disease. It is the measles of mankind. One thing I have learned in a long life, that all our science measured against reality is primitive and childlike, and yet it is the most precious thing we have. I never think of the future. It comes soon enough. The scientist is possessed by the sense of universal causation. The future to him is every whit as necessary and determined as the past. Everything is determined, the beginning as well as the end, by forces over which we have no control. It is determined for the insect as well as the star, human beings, vegetables, or cosmic dust. We all dance to a mysterious tune, intoned in the distance by an invisible piper. Imagine a bedbug completely flattened out, living on the surface of a globe. This bedbug may be gifted with analysis. He may study physics. He may even write a book. His universe will be two-dimensional. He may even intellectually or mathematically conceive of a third dimension, but he cannot visualize it. Man is in the same position as the unfortunate bedbug, except that he is three-dimensional. Man can imagine a fourth dimension mathematically, but he cannot see it, he cannot visualize it, he cannot represent it physically. It exists only mathematically for him. The mind cannot grasp it. Falling in love is not at all the most stupid thing that people do, but gravitation cannot be held responsible for it. The difference between genius and stupidity is that genius has its limits. Human nature always has tried to form for itself a simple and synoptic image of the surrounding world. In doing this, it tries to construct a picture which will give some sort of tangible expression to what the human mind sees in nature. The human mind is not capable of grasping the universe. We are like a little child entering a huge library. The walls are covered to the ceiling with books in many different tongues. The child knows that something must have written these books. It does not know who or how. It does not understand the languages in which they are written. But the child notes a definite plan in the arrangement of the books, a mysterious order which it does not comprehend but only dimly suspects. Nature is the realization of the simplest conceivable mathematical ideas. I am convinced that we can discover by means of purely mathematical constructions the concepts and the laws connecting them with each other, which furnish the key to the understanding of natural phenomena. Experience remains, of course, the sole criterion of the physical utility of a mathematical construction, but the creative principle resides in mathematics. In a certain sense, therefore, I hold it true that pure thought can grasp reality as the ancients dreamt. Every physicist thinks that he knows what a photon is. I spent my life to find out what a photon is, and I still don't know it. The more one chases after quanta, the better they hide themselves. All these 50 years of conscious brooding have brought me no nearer to the answer to the question, what are light quanta? Nowadays, every Tom, Dick and Harry thinks he knows it, but he is mistaken. The quantum theory gives me a feeling very much like yours. One really ought to be ashamed of its success, because it has been obtained in accordance with the Jesuit maxim, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. Quantum mechanics is certainly imposing, but an inner voice tells me that it is not yet the real thing. The theory says a lot, but does not bring us any closer to the secret of the old one. I, at any rate, am convinced that he does not throw dice. A theory is the more impressive the greater the simplicity of its premises, the more different kinds of things it relates, and the more extended its areas of applicability. How wretchedly inadequate is the theoretical physicist as he stands before nature and before his students. There are so many unsolved problems in physics. There is so much that we do not know. Our theories are far from adequate. Physics is an attempt conceptually to grasp reality as it is thought, independently of its being observed. In this sense, one speaks of physical reality. In every important advance, the physicist finds that the fundamental laws are simplified more and more as experimental research advances. He is astonished to notice how sublime order emerges from what appear to be chaos. And this cannot be traced back to the workings of his own mind, but is due to a quality that is inherent in the world of perception. Leibniz well expressed this quality by calling it a pre-established harmony. Concern for man himself and his fate must always form the chief interest of all technical endeavors. Concern for the great unsolved problems of the organization of labor and the distribution of goods, in order that the creation of our mind shall be a blessing and not a curse to mankind. Never forget this in the midst of your diagrams and equations. As long as there are sovereign nations possessing great power, war is inevitable. There has been an earth for a little more than 1 billion years. As for the question of the end of it, I advise, wait and see. Something deeply hidden had to be behind things.